What's happening, and welcome to the 24th floor. It is Monday, May the 5th, and the Grizzlies have a new head coach. Sort of. Anthony Sain of the Anthony Sain Show going to help us sort through the promotion of Tuomas Iisalo, and we'll get into other news around the NBA and the world of Memphis sports. The 24th floor starts right now. Joining me on the show today, it is the one and only Anthony Sain, host of the Anthony Sain Show on Bluff City Media and YouTube, tribal chief of Grizz Twitter and all-around Grizzlies guru. Sain, what is good with you, brother?
Man, I'm good, man. How y'all doing today?
Man, I'm good, dog. You know, I just got fresh off the vacation. I didn't do nothing. I didn't go nowhere. I just was not at work. You know what I'm saying? So it was a good week for me, man. How about yourself?
I feel you. Man, good, man. The Grizzlies on vacation, but I'm not. I'm grinding per usual, but yeah, I feel it. I feel it.
Yeah, the Grizzlies are on vacation, and they got some decisions to make. Let's go ahead and jump into our big idea of today's show. Memphis Grizzlies season, as Anthony Sain so succinctly put it, ended just over a week ago, and their season ended with an interim head coach. Consider Tuomas Iisalo interim no more. The Grizzlies removed the interim tag, promoted Iisalo to the head coach full-time. He took over with just 9 games left in the regular season and managed to get the Grizzlies to a play-in win and an 8th seed before getting swept by the OKC Thunder. 15 games, he went 5-10, but is well decorated overseas, won the 2024 Euro Cup Championship and won Euro Cup Coach of the Year in his first year, among many other things that happened with my guy, Tuomas Iisalo. We had Grizzlies general manager Zach Kleiman had some things to say about Mr. Iisalo as soon as I can get my prompter to come back. More or less, he said that he's happy to have Coach Iisalo in as the head coach. And the Memphis Grizzlies going forward, Tuomas' teams at every level have been disciplined, tenacious, and connected on both ends of the floor, consistently exceeding expectations. We look forward to the same in Memphis. All right, Sain, I know you have thoughts. You're a man of many thoughts. What do you think about this decision by the Grizzlies to make Tuomas Iisalo the head coach full-time?
I'll put it to you just like I put it out on Twitter, man. If the Grizzlies had to wait until the end of the season to fire Coach Taylor Jenkins, right, and they have this press conference announcing that they are hiring a guy who's probably the best coach outside of the NBA, or they hired this guy who was the best coach in college basketball, I would be excited. I would be really excited, right? Especially once I did my research and looked at what this guy does, looked at his philosophy, looked at his offensive philosophy, looked at his defensive philosophy, looked at how he manages his team, how he manages personalities. I would be excited about Tuomas Iisalo, right? And I'm not going to, if that's who that was, but I'm not going to after Taylor Jenkins was fired. You're talking about a guy who, like you said, coached 15 games total. I think there were 2 practices that entire time since he took over the job. He didn't come in saying, hey, I don't like what you guys are doing. I'm going to revamp the offense. I'm going to run the Tuomas Iisalo offense. I'm going to run the Tuomas Iisalo defense. He basically said, I'm going to do what you guys know how to do. The things that I think are really not efficient, I'm going to take those things out. The things that were part of the hybrid offense they were running earlier that season with Taylor Jenkins and Noah LaRoche. He took some of those elements out. He added the screens back in, focused things more on John Morant, but he didn't really do anything to overhaul the offense. He basically did things that the guys already knew how to do, plays they've been running for years, offense and defense. And I think that given an opportunity for him to get a complete training camp and just kind of strategize over the summer to see what he has, I think the fact that he had those that playoff experience, play-in experience, and those tough games to end the regular season, I think those things are what he needed to kind of see what the NBA looks like and what he needs to do to make a plan that can make his team ready for an NBA season next year.
I mean, I think what was kind of interesting to me was just watching the way it felt like the Grizzlies really got some steam back underneath them after they let go of Taylor Jenkins. Yeah. They bring in Tuomas Iisalo, and then he's obviously been there the entirety of the season, and you're asking him to come in and really steady a ship that was sinking and sinking quick. Had a lot of of holes in the hole, right? But it felt like the players really responded well to Coach Iisalo. It didn't seem like they had tuned him out the way it had been kind of reported and whispered and rumored that they might have tuned out Taylor Jenkins. And so, yeah, I mean, he walked into an impossible situation, right? And I think when we talk to Coach, or excuse me, I keep saying Coach, general manager Zach Kleiman, kind of when they brought Iisalo in the first place, he said he was looking for clarity of direction and clarity of vision, right? And I think I would say that they got that a little bit from him. You ask him to go into a play-in scenario, go get at least one win. He does that. I don't think anybody expected him to go out there and beat the Oklahoma City Thunder, right? The team that's been far and away the best team over the course of an entire season, and looks like they're going to stay that way. But I think at the same time, you kind of had a scenario where it looked like he might steal a game or two, right, in that series. He made the Oklahoma City Thunder look vulnerable, at least a little bit. But to your point, Sain, I think he's going to get an off season where he gets to install what he wants to install. He's going to have an off season where he can kind of pick and choose where he wants this roster to go. I'm sure he'll be in the conversation with Kleiman for a lot of what he thinks his new team is going to need here moving forward. And at the same time, we're going to see a lot more of what Tuomas Iisalo is probably known for when they brought him in overseas, as opposed to, like you said, they're running a lot of the same stuff, because what are you going to do with 9 games left in the regular season in terms of trying to change anything? You really can't, because it's only going to make it worse than what it already was.
Yeah, and this is a team on both sides of the ball that a lot of things need to be totally uprooted and started over again. There's so many things that are just legacy issues with this team that we've kind of accepted to be kind of okay. They're just really not okay, man. The fact that Ja Morant doesn't have much of a mid-range game. He's really this year starting to implement those type of things. And that also that they don't use Jaren any type of screening action at all. There's no real two-man game between your two best players. So those type of things, I think, are things that we've kind of accepted because they've been kind of legacy issues with this team. But I think there are things that with the right coaching implemented that those things can change, as well as Jaren Jackson Jr. getting rebounds. I'm not the person who believes that Jaren Jackson Jr. is not physically able to get rebounds. I think a lot of the Grizzlies' strategy over the years, over this Taylor Jenkins run, has allowed Jaren to kind of be that guy who's able to roam and doesn't really have that responsibility. But Tuomas Iisalo, one of his principles is offensive rebounding, where everyone crashes the boards. And I think that once he implements those type of things, you should see some type of increase in Jaren's numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I think what caused a lot of concern for some folks is kind of like when Iisalo came back on, we had seen this fantastic season for Jaren Jackson Jr. up until that point, right? And then it was clear that Iisalo was like, I'm going to go get my, all NBA level, all-star level point guard in the conversation a little bit more. And we saw a very clear increase in production for Ja Morant. And really, Ja had kind of already been on that trajectory even before Taylor Jenkins was let go. But it was clear that, hey, we're going to get into the pick and roll a lot more often with a Ja and a Zach Edey scenario. But at the same time, you saw Jaren's role kind of shrink. And I think what we really want to see, if you're a Grizzlies fan, if you're somebody who's, paying attention to this team, is like, how do you get these two guys to operate and work at the same time and work and go together? And I think what we've seen so far is like, it's very like, all right, your turn, my turn. And for long stretches of the season, especially this past year where there's a lot of conversation about, Ja doesn't seem to like the offense and his production is down, even though he was still averaging, 20 points and 7 assists a game, down for Ja, but not necessarily a down year altogether. But you have to get those guys. If this team is going to advance, win some playoff series, get into a Western Conference Finals, be the contenders that so many people think at one point they should have been or can get back to, they're really going to have to figure out how to get those two guys going, and I think that's something that Tuomas Iisalo is definitely going to have to kind of figure out. A lot of questions about what the team's going to look like moving forward. Ja, Jaren, and Dez have now gone 5 seasons with just one playoff series win. And so the question is, does this core 3 run it back again? I know this is something you talked about on the Anthony Sain show this week, or last week rather. What do you think? Do you keep all 3 of them? Do you run it back? Or do you just got to put some pieces around them?
Yeah, that's definitely something I talked about on the Anthony Sain show. Make sure you guys check that out. Search Anthony Sain on YouTube or Bluff City Media. You can see all of the shows on our network. That's definitely something I talked about, man. I think it kind of has to be done. Something that's kind of problematic about our roster is that you got a lot of value contracts, right? You got the G.G. Jackson contract. You got the Jalen Wells contract, Zach Edey contract, Vince Williams deal. These are all great value contracts, right? Where you've got guys that are on great value, where you're getting a pretty good talent for a very small deal, right? Scottie Pippen Jr., another great value contract they have. Then you got huge contracts, right? You got the John Morant contract, the Desmond Bane contract, and whatever this Jaren Jackson deal is going to be coming up soon, right? But it's really not much in between. So if you're talking about trading for a guy or adding a guy or whatever, it's kind of hard to do. So you have to consider moving. If you're going to make a major deal to bring back major pieces, you have to talk about moving a major piece, right? So you're talking about you're not going to move John Morant. That debate's not even worth having or whatever.
Ludicrous
but if you're thinking
it's
about,
not even worth entertaining.
Right, it's not even worth having a discussion about. But and if you want to hear me talk about that, you can watch that on the Anthony Sain show too. It's the episode before this one. But if you're going to move either a Jaren or a Desmond Bane, I think the debate is pretty simple. If you were to poll the other 29 NBA teams, or you were to redraft the entire NBA, Jaren Jackson Jr. would go ahead of Desmond Bane in any draft you're talking about, or any poll that you're taking, right? It would probably be 29-0. So why should the Grizzlies think any different? Jaren Jackson Jr. is a 7-foot-tall player, former Defensive Player of the Year. He can dribble the ball. He can shoot the ball. He can get to the rim. All these type of things. Plus, you can look at Jaren and say, you know what? With the right coaching, with the right point of emphasis on him, there are other things to his game I feel like I can pull out, right? Those things make Jaren to be a better prospect than Desmond Bane, who's a little bit older than Jaren. But you can look in Dez and pretty much say, this is not saying that Dez is a bad player, but what Desmond Bane is pretty much what Desmond Bane is going to be for his entire career. He's probably only going to go down from here. He's probably not going to get much better. Plus, he's had consistent injuries he's had over the years, whether it's his foot, his back, all these different type of injuries that Dez has had over the years. You can see a guy like him pretty much being what he is or worse. With Jaren, you can still see. Not really sure how long that runway is, but you can still see where someone can take Jaren to add something to his game. Whether it's more physicality, whether it's a true post game with post skills, whether it's rebounding the ball, whatever those type of things. You can see the right person get with Jaren and those things coming out. And also when you come down to contract wise, when you're talking about a Jaren Jackson Jr. contract, there are not many guys in the NBA that have Jaren's contract. And the guys who have that level of contract are not particularly guys you're going to trade a Jaren Jackson level player for. But with a Desmond Bane deal, you can make much more. You can either trade him for a player of his caliber, or you can trade him for two guys of a lesser value because of the amount of his contract or whatever. So to me, it just comes down to things like that with Jaren and Dez, as well as one other factor is that the John Morant, Desmond Bane backcourt is going to be limited. In my perfect scenario, John Morant is playing beside a guy who can defend the other guy. Having a backcourt where neither one of your guards can defend is always going to be problematic for the Grizzlies.
Yeah, I think that was probably the thing that sticks out to me the most, and I think that's kind of been a glaring issue for Memphis as it is just that when you have that Ja and Dez backcourt, like it is prolific from a scoring perspective, but from a defensive perspective, it's just not what you need. Just in terms of length more than anything else, I think we've seen that John Morant can be a pretty good defender when he decides he really wants to do that. And I think Dez is kind of the same way. We've seen Dez kind of take on that role where he's guarding some of the best perimeter players when you don't have a Vince Williams Jr. or a Jalen Wells in the game, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time,
and teams are also. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, you're fine. I was like, they're just short in length, and I think what you find a lot of the time is that Jaren is trying to make up for the deficiencies of some of that on the back end, which led to him being such a great defender in kind of that roaming role, right? And then you've got Zach Edey in that post scenario as well, kind of shoring up the deficiencies that I think a Ja and Dez kind of provides. But, as I'm listening to your show, right, you're saying like, hey, man, we need to get a Jalen Wells type in the 2 role, right, and have another 3 who can be a 3-and-D wing kind of scenario.
Yeah, I think that would be the perfect scenario for the Grizzlies. I don't really get off into the whole GM comment. I'm not the trade scenario guy. I don't have trade scenarios for y'all. I don't do the trade machine thing. But I'll read what you guys post and I'll tell my opinion on it. I'm not the trade machine guy. But in a perfect scenario for me, you bring in a guy that allows Jalen Wells to be your shooting guard. It can be a 6'7" defender who can defend a lot of guys, and your guy is at the small forward is a guy who's a pretty decent defender, but can score points long. Those type of guys, whether they're great on-ball defenders or not, just the length and the size they take up kind of makes them good team defenders, right? So those type of guys, that's the type of guy I would love to see in that spot in a trade for Dez. Whether Dez makes 2 guys or Dez makes 1 guy, I would like to see a guy come back who's a small forward who can score points, who can get around that 18 to 20 points per game, but also is a big body that can kind of get in those passing lanes and make things difficult for the other team.
Does anybody stick out to you as a guy that you would like the Grizzlies to try and go pursue? Not necessarily maybe in a trade scenario, but hey, this is a guy that is the archetype of what I'm looking for and somebody next to Ja Morant?
No, because it won't come out that way. People will post on Twitter. Sain said the Grizzlies are about to go get so and so. No, I don't. I'll let you guys figure those things out. But if they're 6'8", 6'9", nice wingspan longer than their height, like Desmond Baines is, not sign me up for whoever that guy is. But I'll leave it up to Zach Kleiman to figure out.
Yeah, I think Desmond Bain would be a pretty valuable piece for a lot of people, just in terms of for his shooting prowess alone. I mean, he's a guy who can go get you 30 on a night where Ja Morant is not doing his thing, or Jaren Jackson Jr. So I think from an offensive perspective, they really had something going on, but they've really got a lot of deficiencies they have to shore up with the roster. And sometimes if you want to make money, you got to spend money, right? You have to get rid of somebody like potentially a Desmond Bain.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Big news in the NBA over the weekend. Let's kind of move on from the Grizz. Gregg Popovich will not return as the head coach of the Spurs next season. After 29 seasons, he will move away from the bench and into the Spurs front office as team president. Popovich had a stroke in November and missed nearly all of the season. But in his tenure as head coach, he went 1,422 and 869. Won 5 NBA championships, 3-time NBA Coach of the Year, and led Team USA to a gold medal as well. Sain, I know you've watched the NBA a long time, brother. You are a Grizz fan through and through, but it's hard to deny the greatness that is Gregg Popovich. What have you thought about his career and what he brings to the table?
Oh, man, easily the greatest coach of all time. In my time of covering Grizzlies games, being in the locker room, going to post-game press conferences, pre-game press conferences, Gregg Popovich to this day is the only coach that I got up and left the house early to go see him speak to the press. Like, he's the only coach I've ever done that for. I've done that to see, I've made an effort to, go see the LeBron James of the world, the Kevin Durant's of the world, the Steph Currys inside those locker rooms to see those great players. Never got a chance to see Kobe Bryant. Saw Kevin Garnett. I've seen all these great players come through here, right? Come through Memphis. And I've got up early to maybe get some early locker room stuff or stay late to get some locker room stuff. Gregg Popovich is the only coach that I said, if I don't do anything else, I've got to be in a Gregg Popovich scrum. And no, I didn't ask some goofball question so you can tee off on me on purpose. I didn't do that. I don't get off on Gregg Popovich
he'll
going
tee
off
on me. Just because he wants
to. Yeah. I sat there quietly and in awe, man, watching, one of the greats of all time. And this is a just a proud moment for him, proud moment for the league, man, for a coach. You're talking about a guy, like you hear people talk about things like experience, right? Like, bringing coaches in with experience, all these type of things. The San Antonio Spurs hired Gregg Popovich, who had never coached before, and he's been the coach for, 20-something years, you know what I mean? Yeah. And he's been there forever. And that's something you'll never see that again. You'll never see a double-digit year coach again. Like, as far as guys who are coming in coaching now, you won't see a guy coach for a team that long. And Gregg Popovich just has been a tremendous coach. And I think one of the things that is so incredible about his time as a coach of the San Antonio Spurs is not only was he a good coach, but he was good through so many eras of basketball, right? Yeah. Like through the ISO heavy era of the 90s, he was good. The space and pace era, he was good. Every era, he found a way to have a very good team and multiple championship teams all across several eras of the NBA. He's adjusted his game to whatever the NBA has been, and he's found a way to be, the top coach in the league over all that time. He's got, Olympic gold medals, all those type of things. He's just a tremendous coach, and his legacy, man, it has to be respected for sure.
Yeah, I think when you talk about the 5 championships is what's going to stick out for a lot of people, but at the end of the day, he was also a phenomenal human, and I think you hear so many stories of just about Gregg Popovich the person as well as Gregg Popovich the coach. He's kind of been a social justice warrior. He's been somebody who is not afraid to say the thing that nobody else really wants to say, right? And I think that's kind of really, really cool. And much like what the Grizzlies have done, Popovich said, no, I want Mitch Johnson to be the head coach moving forward. Yeah. He was the acting head coach. While Popovich was kind of dealing with his medical issues. And I think what does kind of stink about this to me is it feels like Pop is not going out on his own terms, right? You have the medical issues, and certainly you're hoping that he's handling that the way that he should, and handling that in a way where it's not going to continue to affect his life. But I would have loved for, a going away season type of scenario, kind of like what Kobe got, right? Where this might be Popovich's last year and you just kind of allow the NBA world to give him his flowers over the course of a season. We won't get that. And quite honestly, he probably wouldn't even have wanted that, just knowing the kind of guy that he is. But I thought it was kind of sad that he's giving the organization away this way, as opposed to, hey, he's going out on his own terms, knowing that he's kind of giving the game all that he wanted to from a head coaching perspective. Although I'm sure he's going to be a great GM, a great president. I watched the clip on social media today about how they were kind of introducing him in this new role, and he takes off his jacket and he's wearing a shirt that says El Jefe, and he says, "I'm not the coach anymore, I'm El Jefe." And I think he is going to be somebody that is going to be really interesting to watch in a front office role. As he continues to move forward, as the Spurs continue to move forward. They're going to get Cooper Flagg here in the draft here soon. They've got the alien and Victor Wembanyama. The Spurs are going to be scary, man, I think, moving forward. And we'll see what kind of head coach Mitch Johnson can be moving forward, too.
Yeah. As a draft conspiratist, as a known long-time draft conspiratist, right, if I don't think Cooper Flagg is going to – I think he's going to Brooklyn. I think he's going out east. I think they're going to send him out east for sure. I think Brooklyn is where he's going to go. But it's good to know I am speaking to another NBA draft conspiracist for sure. But back to the Mitch Johnson thing. It's kind of crazy, man, because it's like, when Taylor Jenkins got fired, people would kind of say, oh, Taylor Jenkins is probably going to get the Spurs gig. And I was like, no, man, that job's too high profile. Like, that job's going to go – I can see guys, like, leaving their current job to go there, right? So I was like, that job's probably going to – I would see Eric Spoelstra leaving Miami to go there, right? Like, that's the type of job I was thinking. Because I'm like, man, you're about to have, the best player in the league, possibly the best player in the league, plenty of runway to go, young team, guys who on small contracts. Like, that team – could be very good, right? You got the Rookie of the Year on your team, De'Aaron Fox. Like, that team could be good. I could see somebody like Spoelstra won that gig. Then I was thinking, well, maybe Mike Malone, when Mike Malone got let go of Denver, right? And then to see that they hired a guy from the inside, I was like, man, that kind of speaks to what the NBA is doing nowadays, man. Yeah. And not just not now, but just throughout time. Because that's another interesting conversation too. I know we're done with the Grizzlies, but I am going to go back to something that I put on Twitter as well. That people got to get caught up with this thing with the Grizzlies, where you need a grown man coach and they need somebody to come in and get these guys into shape and to be an adult in the room and all these type of things, right? First of all, your best players on the team are 25, 26 years old. They should be the adults in the room, right? Yeah. But that's one way to look at it. But if you look at NBA history, the way that the teams have hired coaches for these type of teams who you said that they went as far as they're going to go with a certain coach, right? The names are guys like Phil Jackson, Steve Kerr, Eric Spoelstra, Ime Udoka, Joe Mazzulla, and Mark Dagnall, the guys that come to mind as far as guys who – and also Pat Riley. We're all first-year coaches. These guys were all first-year coaches, man. But we got this thing in our head where we're running around saying, oh, they got to bring in some vet coach or they got to bring in some guy with championship pedigree. But that's not the way that it's happening in the NBA, man. When teams have went on to the guy that's taking them to that next level, it's been first-year coaches for the majority, which is a very interesting thing to think about when compared to how people used to think.
Yeah, I think you make a fantastic point. We'll see what the Grizzlies and everybody else continues to do. We'll see if that trend kind of continues. Quickly before we head to break, Sain, you got any thoughts on what you've seen so far in the playoffs?
No, man. Coming into it, I had a sneaky suspicion that Boston was coming right back out of the East. Seeing Cleveland take that L the other day, Boston has shown that they kind of cut it on and off, and I think they've got another gear. Being the way that this salary cap stuff is going, I'm sure Boston is going to go hard to try to get another one. I've got Boston and OKC in the finals. I think Cleveland wins this series against the Pacers, but I think that Boston is going to expose some things that the Pacers can't when it comes down to it. But I've got OKC and Boston, and I don't really have a pick for the championship. Probably going to be Boston again, but I would not be surprised. I think a lot of people kind of downplay this Oklahoma City team, especially people in Memphis who kind of watched them be our little bros, and now they've leaked us or whatever. You're talking about a team that won 68 games this year, bro. Right. The most the team has ever won is right. They won 68 games, bro, and their defense is really good as well. And I think we've kind of downplayed what they've done because they don't have that transcending LeBron, Kobe Bryant, Steph Curry, even a Kevin Durant level star on their team. So we kind of downplay them because they don't have that guy that's that mega star, that mega personality. SGA is kind of a cornball, kind of looks like an AI player, like somebody just typed in some random prompts. SGA came out. But But with that being said, that team is really, really good, bro. Like they won 68 games for a reason, and in a season where they had injuries to one of their key players, two of their key players. Three of their key players had injuries throughout the season.
Still really, really good. Yeah, we'll see what they're able to do, man. I think OKC is definitely still going to be probably the team that comes out of the West, but this looks like it might be the East year. Sain, appreciate you being on the show today, brother. Your thoughts are always an entertaining one to hear, and I'll be sure to get them back here soon.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right, we got to take a break, but coming up, Tigers shoring up their roster for next season, but still waiting in the PJ Haggerty sweepstakes. The latest on Tiger Suits coming up.
On Weather Impact Alert Days, stay informed, prepared, and connected with ABC 24 and 24+. Coverage that alerts you to what's coming and how it will impact you. Watch extended weather coverage on 24+. The 24+ TV app. Streaming 24/7 local news from the team you trust on your time.
Rain showers through the day today, and we're starting.
Track how the weather will impact your day.
Rain coming in tonight into tomorrow.
Extended, continuous coverage of breaking news, live from the scene. Go deeper with in-depth interviews and exclusive reporting. All the local news you need, live or on demand. 24+, complete coverage of your local news, weather, and more.
Here comes our first batch of rain.
Some severe thunderstorms and even several tornado warnings.
I think the bigger issue is going to be the wind gusts. So you start getting some branches knocked around. You could definitely see some power outages today. Those storms could pack a punch.
It's not just the thunderstorms, it's the fact that this low pressure is so strong.
That's how big that storm system was.
On Weather Impact Alert Days, stream extended coverage on 24+. Download on your TV and watch for free. When news breaks, watch 24+. See the story as it's happening. Be on the scene, faster than ever before. Live updates from the team you trust. Stream breaking news on 24+. Download free on your TV now.
Welcome back to the 24th floor. The Memphis Tigers aren't exactly expecting All-American guard PJ Haggerty back next season, but his return would certainly be welcomed. However, Haggerty's entertaining the NBA draft waters. He was one of 75 players invited to the NBA draft combine, where he'll try to show pro teams that he should be on their roster next year. He was the third best scorer in the country last season and a consensus second-team All-American, as well as the AAC Player of the Year. Haggerty will gauge his draft value, but if he opts to come back to college for another year, he has until June 15th to withdraw from the draft process. That could mean a return to the Tigers. It's on the table, but as of now, North Carolina State is the front-runner to retain his services. As for other former Tigers that enter the transfer portal, P.J. Carter will be headed to the Louisiana Bayou. He signed with the LSU Tigers late last week. He averaged 5.5 points and a rebound a game in 35 games for Memphis, but he was a sharp shooter, shooting 40% from deep. Backup guard Baraka Okogie will head to Georgia. He announced his commitment to Mercer University, my alma mater. Okogie averaged 1.5 points and 1 assist in 31 games for Memphis, but really more known for his defensive prowess and that energy. The pair were 2 of 6 Tigers to enter the transfer portal after the season ended. Who will be in the Tiger stripes next year? Hassan Abdul Hakim signed with the Tigers last week. He joins up after 2 seasons at Texas Rio Grande Valley. He's 6'8" and put up 13.6 boards and 3 assists last year. He becomes the 10th signee of the offseason for Penny Hardaway. So what does the roster look like for Penny now? He's added a big and 7'1" center Aaron Bradshaw to Ohio State. The primary scorer looks like it'll be Sincere Parker from McNeese State, played under Will Wade over there. Zach Davis joins up from SEC's South Carolina, and he's got a bevy of guards in Baraka Okogie, who will not be back, but you got Daniel Vieira-Tuck, you've got Julius Thurford, who is a Memphis native, and then, of course, you got Zach Davis from South Carolina. And it'll be interesting to see what he does with his own son, that is Ashton Hardaway. He'll be back for another year. But they could still get a decision from B.J. Haggerty and Dane Danger seeking a waiver from the NCAA. On to a little football. The Ole Miss Rebels got a big-time commitment for a couple of years from now. They're picking up 4-star commit Demarius Yates out of Kemper County High School in Mississippi. Yates picked Ole Miss over Mississippi State, Florida State, and Alabama. Ran for 1,300 yards and 15 touchdowns as a junior. He's in the class of 2026. On the basketball front, Ole Miss picks up a commitment from Kentucky transfer Travis Perry. Perry spent 1 season in Lexington, put up about 2 points in 9 minutes a game as a freshman. But boy, he can hoop. He was a 4-star commit to Kentucky and is the all-time leading scorer in Kentucky basketball history. Ole Miss had 7 players exhaust their college eligibility this season for a team that wins the big dance. Let's wrap things up. Best thing I saw this week, Anthony Edwards, fresh off the gentleman's sweep of the LA Lakers, taking a victory lap outside Crypto.com Arena, giving Lakers fans all the smack talk they were giving the Timberwolves during the series. Lakers in 5, not so much. He said the good guy's going to die in this movie. Morris Chestnut dies in this movie. And then he proceeds to tell a fan that Boys in the Hood is not his favorite movie. It is Matilda. He may not want to be the face of the NBA, but boy, does he make a good case for it. That's all I got for you today. We are back on Thursday for another episode of the 24th Floor. Thanks to Rich Denson, our producer. Thanks to Jared Robertson, my director. And thank you to Anthony Sain of The Anthony Sain Show for joining the program. Until next time, I will see you later.
Continue with us and watch free now on the 24 Plus app everywhere you stream.